When was the first time I remember seeing Star Wars?
The first time I remember watching Star Wars.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you that.
That's so tough because Star Wars has always been there in my life.
The first Star Wars movie that I remember seeing was at a small theater.
It's just on an old VHS. We had to fast forward through the commercials and stuff like that.
When I was pretty little, I don't remember how old, but my older brothers would babysit me. They would tie me to a chair and make me watch Star Wars. And I think I let them think that I didn't like Star Wars.
So I couldn't tell you when the first time was, but I can tell you that I've watched it a lot.
It's weird because I knew that I was always a fan, but I never knew how much it meant to me until I got so much older.
I mean, it is really just a film, right? But it's super fun.
You know, it's kind of a badass franchise, but outside of that...
I think one thing that I really, really love about Star Wars is the sense of community.
Everyone knows what Star Wars is, even if they've never seen Star Wars. That's ridiculous.
If it wasn't for Star Wars, I probably wouldn't be obsessed with movies in general. I probably wouldn't be a filmmaking hobbyist.
My favorite Star Wars character is probably Anakin.
There's just something about the character of Luke Skywalker.
Ahsoka Tano is pretty dope.
Obviously, Princess Leia, she was really influential.
Han Solo, favorite character, easily.
Most controversial character I would learn later, Jar Jar Binks. Like, that's a part of my childhood.
But I've always loved Lando. I've always had a big thing for Lando.
I feel like with the character Luke Skywalker, more than maybe any other movie I could think of, you really go on that journey with him and you experience all those space adventures vicariously.
And then when the prequels came out and we found out who Anakin was, it was pretty hard hitting.
What I loved was that you could see him from the very beginning and the path that took him down different places. It was such, you know, kind of a life lesson.
It's really cool to get to know a character like that.
Star Wars is just this idea that there's something more.
It inspired kids to dream of things that just weren't.
For a kid, it was understandable enough, but it was just so wild and new. And
honestly, this is kind of a bold claim, but I might not have as strong of a moral compass as I do.
Star Wars is indoctrinated so far into the human race, it's almost as if that existed before we ever did.
Star Wars really has helped me to really root for good, to really want to be good. And I think it's done that for a lot of kids, and they've held on to that as they've become adults.
Do I think other people's stories are similar to mine?
What's up, everybody?
What's up, y'all?
What's up, guys?
What's going on, guys?
Hello. Hi, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's up?
It's your boy, AJ.
Ellen D here.
Downtime with Demille.
How's it going?
Hope you're all having an awesome day.
Welcome to the Fandom Initiative Part 3.
Fandom Initiative Part 3.
Fandom Initiative 3.
Fandom Initiative 3.
Fandom Initiative
Number 3. Initiative 3.
Fandom Initiative 3.
Part 3. Oh my goodness.
YouTubers, assemble.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker.
This is where the fun begins.
That's right, guys. Today we are going to be talking about and nerding out about Star Wars and giving you all our Skywalker story.
My name is Bruna, and I'm from the channel Bruna Full of Sugar.
Adam from Bird's Eye View here.
This is Colb's Bob's Reviews.
Cogman Jake here.
Dave from Interpreting the Stars.
Jacob Anders Reviews.
I'm so glad to be here.
The Fandom Initiative, the greatest collection of fans online.
As we all know, Star Wars is coming to an end. The Skywalker Saga. Episode 9 will be out very soon, and this is going to be the last movie in a 9-movie saga that has been, how do I say, wow.
Personally, I can't even remember a time in my life where I wouldn't give Star Wars praise.
I grew up with Star Wars. With the exception of Episode 4, I've seen every one of them in the movie theaters.
In 1983, we were at Return of the Jedi.
It's a franchise which I grew up with because, yes, I am quite old, hence the white beard.
I first watched Star Wars when I was 4 or 5 years old with my father.
Star Wars, it's been a part of my life since I was 3 years old.
Back in 1997, I was 6 years old.
I wanted to be a Jedi Knight. I'm 20 now and I still want to be a Jedi Knight.
Star Wars was being re-released for the 20th year anniversary.
And now I was probably a little too young to remember some of that, but man, I'm telling you, I have been a fan of these films ever since I was a little kid.
I fell in love with Star Wars almost instantly.
I've grown up with it, it's the best thing ever.
My mom always tells my brother and I about how she went to the theater to see that first Star Wars film like 15 times or something.
I grew up on the original trilogy, okay?
So I was practically born into it.
That's the stuff that I love, that's the things that I grew up on. It's kind of like your mom's cooking, right?
When I was young, my dad showed me the first few Star Wars movies.
I was 3 years old. My brothers were watching A New Hope.
I was introduced to it at the age of 4 by my dad, and it was essentially my first introduction really to pop culture.
My first memories of Star Wars is my parents had taped it. They had The Empire Strikes Back.
9 years old that my dad actually got to show me the actual Star Wars series.
VHS copies of the special edition Star Wars that came out back in 1997.
We watched it to death. We absolutely won out the tape.
And then one day, my brother pops in and shows me Star Wars.
I absolutely loved it.
And that was it. Sold, signed, sealed, delivered.
It was so magical and just something I'd never seen before. It was beyond my comprehension.
It was pure magic, my friend.
So I watched my first Star Wars when I was 15 years old.
My dad took me and my sister to go see A New Hope.
My mom took me to one of the re-releasings in like 99, 2000.
Obviously, then we had the prequels coming out.
We had the prequel trilogy, which no one really talks about, but we accept.
I kind of really like the prequels, not gonna lie.
The Phantom Menace was released. I remember being in the theaters.
I went to the midnight screening. I was so excited. Star Wars was back on the big screen.
I saw that 7 times in a movie theater.
Camping outside the cinema for 3 days.
Back in 2015, I saw The Force Awakens opening night. I think I went to like an 11 o'clock showing with my wife.
We drove through blaring the Phantom Menace soundtrack, which had come out already, and yeah, we just did a drive-by water bombing of these guys.
My beautiful, lovely wife waited in line with me for 3 hours out in the freezing cold.
Yeah, we went to the very front of the line, and when they finally opened the door to let the campers inside, yeah, they were not too impressed.
But my first real, true cinematic experience when it comes to Star Wars was watching The Force Awakens on opening night in IMAX.
I got into Star Wars late, right before Force Awakens.
I get to the theater, it is already an hour before, it is jam-packed shoulder to shoulder.
And I mean, I binged.
And I have to basically find the seat, man. I'm telling you, when The Force Awakens came out, there was so much buzz about that movie.
I watched The Force Awakens 15 times.
And then the Star Wars logo comes up, the music kicks in. It was truly an unforgettable experience, and it's something I will cherish for my entire life.
As soon as I started watching A New Hope, I knew it was love at first sight.
Here we are in 2019, and we're about to close off the Skywalker saga.
So we're about to end a whole saga of movies that has spanned across multiple generations.
Never really knowing that we were ever gonna get episode 7, 8, and 9.
That's an amazing accomplishment, no matter how the quality fluctuates.
Because it's the reason that movies and pop culture is the way it is today. It's kind of like the start of pop culture, really.
This is like the most iconic franchise ever.
There is no greater fantasy than Star Wars.
You realize just how much of an incredible pop culture phenomenon it is.
This is one of the franchises that people are the most passionate about in the world.
If you haven't heard of Star Wars, you've been living under a rock.
This is the franchise with the largest cultural impact of all time.
It's so cliche, but it's a generation-defining set of movies.
This spans multiple generations. People have taken their kids, their grandkids to see this.
Seeing the re-releases in theaters still stands as one of the greatest cinematic experiences of my life.
That it started off as just this film that no one was really sure whether to give a go on or not.
It wasn't going to work back in the day, but it does.
You know, these characters are timeless.
These characters, they're written in a way that really just grabs you.
These are some iconic characters.
Luke Skywalker for the win, man.
Rey.
Kylo Ren.
Boba Fett.
Darth Vader is one of the best film characters of all time.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, R2-D2 was one of my absolute favorite characters.
The biggest thing I can say is that the Star Wars universe is told through more than just a presented story.
These movies were revolutionary in both production, using practical and special effects in new ways.
There was a struggle back in the 70s of like movies and whether cinema was going to continue. The way that they were doing things with certain films, it was just churning out the same kind of stuff.
And here we are, over 40 years later, still talking about it, still getting excited about it.
At every age, you can watch these Star Wars movies, Star Wars films, regardless of how you feel about them, and you can feel something different every time.
The original trilogy is timeless and amazing and a classic for at least me personally.
And it still drives inspiration for the next generation of filmmakers.
This is the one that taught me how to fuse the building blocks of classical storytelling with my own imagination.
And then in storytelling, like knowing that Darth Vader is Luke's father, that's like the twist of a lifetime.
I was there for the I am your father moment, and my mind, just like everyone else, was just blown.
And when I was 7 years old, how my heart broke for the first time when Darth Vader said, "No, I am your father."
Sitting there in the theater, and that happens, we're just like, what? He's whose father?
It was a moment where I literally had just chills watching.
It was escapism, it was fantasy.
Sci-fi, fantasy, western epic.
It was the most fantastical thing you've ever seen in your life.
Which is one of the many, many reasons why I love this universe. This world that takes us to a place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Star Wars has been about that fantasy, about that escapism.
And I think that that's what I love about it. There's something that's just awesome and inspiring and very enjoyable when it comes to Star Wars for me.
So I really enjoy just the art of the film, the art of, the vision that was created by George Lucas a long time ago.
To me, it was just cinematic brilliance, and George Lucas has created something that is truly amazing.
And the stories, characters, and world that George Lucas created is one that I'm happy I was able to grow up with.
Growing up with it, it's just kind of been a part of my childhood, my adulthood, my teenagehood.
I just kind of felt like that my imagination just got opened up.
I remember just being a kid wanting to have like that, have the Force and have the whole lightsaber duels and everything.
And afterwards, me and my siblings would go out into the yard, tie blankets around our necks, and take our broomsticks and do sword fights.
Dismantle furniture to make it swords, like get chair legs and stuff.
It's been everything about my coming up by my childhood. I used to have those plastic lightsabers you got from Walmart, ran around my backyard and I'd kill imaginary droids.
I had the toys, I had the comics,
I had the little action figures,
games.
I had like the R2-D2, the C-3PO,
like Atari games, like the old games.
All my life, I've been watching the movies, the shows, playing the video games, reading the books.
Lightsabers, board games, augmented reality games, mobile games, t-shirts, pants, hats, pajamas, a BB-8 desktop hologram thing.
Hey, come on, let's admit it. This is all for kids, man. And you know what? I'm a big kid, and that's okay.
Star Wars was the beginning of my fandom. It was my first fandom.
Star Wars is emotional, it's impactful, it got the conversation started. There's lots of positive things, there's a couple negative things.
I love all sorts of films, but Star Wars is where it began.
It never gets boring for me. It doesn't matter how many more we get or how many years go by, I would always love talking about Star Wars, and I generally am so passionate about it.
Star Wars has played a huge role across my life and influenced a lot of the person I am today.
I love Star Wars. I wouldn't be where I am today
if it wasn't for Star Wars in general.
Star Wars shaped me into the person that I am.
It brought hope to a little kid that didn't always have the easiest childhood, but at the end of the day could come home and turn on The Empire Strikes Back and just get away from it all for a few minutes.
It brings to me hope. It brings to me a feeling of unity and a sense of purpose.
A lot of it is really around the time that you grew up at. It's what you grew up with. And that's the thing, is Star Wars has spanned several generations of people now.
Binds us, kind of like the Force. What binds us as Star Wars fans is that spirit.
For me, that was something that resonated as a kid, as a youth, and it's carried with me even now to my adulthood. I'm teaching my kids about the Jedi way.
It's just, Star Wars to me means family and collective unity, and
being able to experience these things with family, with friends, talking about it for hours after you've left the theater.
just the moment to be able to sit with my family and we all collectively nerd out.
That's the one thing for me. I have kids right now that were probably the ages I would have been when these movies, the original trilogy, was hitting the movie theater. So, taking my kids to see The Force Awakens and even The Last Jedi, seeing the looks on their faces and everything.
New people can become fans of the franchise, and
the reason why I like Star Wars so much is because it is the passing of the torch. It's a fandom that my parents gave to me, and it's a fandom that I'm passing on to my kids.
it is a shame to see that it's all coming to a close.
This is the end of an era.
I don't want it to end.
Because I'm starting to feel slightly emotional.
But everything does have to have an end.
I have a feeling it's not over.
And I'm really looking forward to see what they do now.
The film is called The Rise of Skywalker for a reason. I think in some strange way it's just the beginning.
Bring on The Rise of Skywalker. I cannot wait.
And I am really looking forward to The Rise of Skywalker.
I can't wait to see what happens in The Rise of Skywalker.
Because, it's going to be the conclusion to a saga, which kind of makes me sad because it's, as I said, it's a saga, it's a film franchise which has been a part of my life since I was a child.
Now knowing that this ties into the last part of what my father went through. I mean, just watching, the Star Wars mythos there, and seeing that it's concluding with me and my generation is just unbelievable.
And when I go in to see Episode 9 and watch it all come to a head, the movie might not turn out as great as I think. The movie might be bad.
Please be good.
But that excitement, that spirit, I will always be there for.
As true Star Wars fans understand, from the nostalgic roots of the original trilogy to the mostly ups but some downs of the prequels to whatever we're in right now with the sequels. Here's to Star Wars, and hoping that the newest installment is better.
And it doesn't matter what area, what direction Star Wars goes in next, it's always that spirit that will thrive, that spirit that binds us, and that spirit that makes me a Star Wars fan.
Star Wars.
Thank you for taking us on this journey.
May the Force be with you.
And let the Force be with you.
May the Force
be with you.
Always.
Farewell.
I don't know. Something like that.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in here today at Nerdy Blurb TV and checking out this video. Consider subscribing if you're into this kind of stuff because we like to keep it nerdy here and interact with cool individuals such as yourself. Have a great day.